Hi, everyone. Welcome to our usual Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle.
And I'm two of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes,
I
there
think
you
I'm
go.
on, right?
So thank you for joining us, whether you're here live or viewing on the replay. We're so happy to have you here, as always. It is our pleasure. And, a little bit of YouTube spiel. It would help us out very much if you would like this video, subscribe to our channel to keep up with all the cool stuff we're doing, leave a comment. So many of you leave such sweet comments, and we really appreciate that. And your questions are often excellent. We love taking time to answer those as we're able. And of course, share our videos. Please feel free to share our content as much as you might like. As Mushtaq always says, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. All of that works quite nicely for us. Anything I'm missing, Mushtaq?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. And as always, you can email us because we do one-on-ones. And if that interests you, touch base with us and we'll see if we're a good fit for one another, because it's always fun to go deeper into the work. Group work is awesome, it's critical. We understand that, and we appreciate that many of you do too. But if you're looking for further guidance, you can always reach out for a private session. So, other than that, without further ado, let's get to the topic at hand.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
What's the topic at hand?
Well, we are going to be discussing the Emperor's New Clothes, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see the Emperor's New Clothes? Does everybody here, are you familiar with the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale about the Emperor's New Clothes? Anybody not know that fairy tale? Okay, good. That makes life easier. Doesn't really matter. So, Noor, do you want to read?
I would be happy to. Let me pull up my document. Here we are. So, would you like me to read our quote for this evening? Is that what we're doing?
Uh, I was going to read Jed's quote for the evening.
Oh,
Have
yes.
you
Well,
read that? Yeah.
got it. Okay.
You don't have it. I have it. So,
I found it. I got it right here.
okay.
Okay. So, this is from our esteemed fictitious colleague, Jed McKenna, who has said, and I quote, "The Emperor has no clothes, and sooner or later everyone is going to see what's staring them right in the face. When that happens, perhaps there will be a major shift, a mass exodus away from the complexity and futility of all spiritual teachings. An exodus not outward toward Japan or India or Tibet, but inward toward the self, toward self-reliance, toward self-determination, toward a common sense approach to figuring out just what the hell's going on around here. A wiping of the slate, a fresh start. Sincere, intelligent people dispensing with the past and beginning anew. Beginning by asking themselves, okay, where are we? What do we know for sure? What do we know that's true? Here's a simple test. If it's soothing or comforting, if it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, if it's about getting into pleasant emotional or mental states, if it's about peace, love, tranquility, silence, or bliss, if it's about a brighter future or a better tomorrow, if it makes you feel good about yourself or boosts your self-esteem, tells you you're okay, tells you everything's just fine the way it is, if it offers to improve, benefit, or elevate you, or if it suggests that someone else is better or above you. If it's about belief or faith or worship, if it raises or alters consciousness, if it combats stress or deepens relaxation, or if it's therapeutic or healing, or if it promises happiness or relief from unhappiness. If it's about any of these or similar things, then it's not about waking up. Then it's about living in the dream state, not smashing out of it. On the other hand, if it feels like you're being skinned alive, if it feels like a prolonged evisceration, if you feel your identity unraveling, if it twists you up physically and drains your health and derails your life, if you feel love dying inside of you, if it seems like death would be better, then it's probably the process of awakening. That, or of a hell of a case of gas. Jed McKenna.
So we're not saying that this is true. We're not saying that this is Holy Writ. What we're saying is that there are ideas here worthy of discussion. And so, in the spirit of our own tradition, we are going to look at this and go, what could be true about this? What is false about this? What is indeterminate about this? What about this are Judd's game rules? Y'all know what the five-valued logic is, right?
I think you should
I should probably tell y'all.
You should definitely do that.
Aristotelian two-valued logic. Something is either true or it's false. The non-Aristotelian five-valued logic says a proposition is apparently true, false, indeterminate, meaningless, or a game rule. One of those five. So, yes, Alessandro.
Good question. What does it mean, game role?
Say again.
What does it mean, game role?
Being raw?
Game rule. What does that
Game
mean?
rule. Okay, a game rule is, for instance, let's say you're a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Catholic, Catholicism has game rules. And those include things like you must believe that the host magically turns into the actual flesh of Jesus Christ, even though it looks like a little white wafer. That's a game rule.
Okay.
It's not meaningless because if you want to play the Catholic game, you have to have that rule. You have to play by that rule.
So why don't you name those five again? Just so we
Apparently true. False. Indeterminate. Meaningless. Game rules. There are other values you can put in there, but those are the basic five. You can tell that this is probably Aresian in nature. So, here's the thought. Will people notice that the emperor is naked, using that metaphor? remember in the story, everybody had to pretend that they saw the clothes, and they pretended so well that it was as if they saw the clothes. Until the little kid went, "Look, Mama, that man doesn't have any clothes on." So, will there be a great awakening? What do you think? A mass exodus? I'll take mass exodus for 25.
Mass exodus. Yeah. I mean, this is a common trope right now, right? And yes, Dr. Bill, sure.
Past performance is no guarantee of future earnings. But if I had to look at the past Humpty Scrunch gazillion years of recorded human history, I'm a bet not.
It's not a bet I would take. Some people think so, though. Some people think that the Great Awakening is right around the corner.
Lavita, what do you think?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to say the same thing because it might look for a while like there's going to be a mass exodus, but our history is cyclical. So every 100 years or so, there looks like the sleeper is awakening, and then it kind of snorts and it's awake for a couple of minutes and then it goes back to sleep. So
Yeah.
I don't have enough money to take a chance on that bet.
Yeah, it does seem that every great enlightenment is followed by an endarkenment.
Yeah. Now, some people will wake up. There's always some people who are awake. But as far as like everybody,
Lavita is not convinced.
I'm not feeling optimistic about that. I would love to be wrong, though. I would absolutely be
very
delighted.
cool.
Yes, I would be delighted to be wrong.
Yeah. Being wrong about that would be a lot like walking down Haight Street in 1967 in July and watching everybody go, "Wow, man, heavy."
Yeah. James, what's up?
Well, I just walked in on the comment, "Will there be a great awakening?" which presses a massive button because I have no patience for the idea. I think it's just a repackaged paradise fantasy to make the ego look forward to things. I don't see. I see things getting worse, with conditions becoming more distracting and more discouraging, and with the compensatory fantasies becoming more unrealistic. And that's what I put the latest trend of Great Awakening stuff into. But at the same time, you should never be discouraged by that. It just means you have to have your work in very clear perspective and your motivations very clear. Yeah, that's it's a topic I feel strongly on, simply because lots of people are waiting for the UFOs to come and grab them, or for this or that to be revealed, or for us to pump up into 5D through only having happy thoughts and da 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 da. And the flip side of that seems to be an obsession with the powers of darkness that are keeping us back to their malicious purposes, with various strange political offshoots. Apocalypticism, I don't like it. That's me. That's my rant.
Yeah.
Excellent rant. Excellent rant.
And I want you guys to notice that in Jed's offering here, the first paragraph is basically that. There is this great thing that could happen. And then he goes on to talk about, is it soothing or comforting and all of this stuff? But all of that stuff is what is contained in his first paragraph. His second paragraph basically puts the lie to his first paragraph. Which I find interesting. The contradiction there is amusing.
Yeah, that is interesting. That is an excellent point. Levita, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I wanted to add to something that James said. He was talking about the UFOs coming to get us. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the United States, it was announced that the UFO thing was actually real, and nobody cared. Everybody was kind of like, well, will they pay my bills? Are they coming to get us already? Nobody cared. So if they've been here for some time, they're not taking us anywhere because we're not ready.
Yeah, they're having like hearings about it, right? I think they're. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It's
If the
been.
unidentified objects are in fact aliens, this is a trip to the zoo for them.
Oh man. Okay. Yes.
I think they're the jinn, personally,
The
to the extent I have any opinion. They've always been here playing silly buggers. Don't trust them.
Yeah, I think
Astaghfirullah.
that there's a lot of merit to that particular point of view myself. But
Yeah.
Dr. Bill had a thought.
Yes.
Yeah, couple of them actually. One, I think for anybody particularly living in North America, and to a lesser extent perhaps in continental Europe, I think it's very difficult to tease the strands apart of what is reflexive millennialism, because Eurocentric culture, being Christianocentric, has got the apocalyptic literally baked into its game rules. So is a millennial apocalyptic tendency a fundamental human trait? To what extent is that fundamental human trait amped up to 11? Because you got to think with the culture you live in, unless you take tremendous steps to get 2 or 3 different viewpoints and then kind of find a place to look around you in the middle of these points and say, okay, netty, maybe, netty. So that's the thing. I will also point out, just because UFOs and matters spatial are one of my recreational jams, that in a very real way, all the congressional hearings mean bupkis. They don't. The only difference between now and 5 years ago is a government official is willing to say in public, yeah, so the stuff we've been trying to say didn't exist, something is going on and we're trying to keep track of it. But something is going on should have been painfully apparent to anybody who took more than 10 minutes to look at the phenomenon. What is going on is still absolutely indeterminate.
Yep. Yeah, fair enough. And James says the ego has difficulty imagining a world going on without it. Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
So, Jed's third paragraph, where he talks about if it feels like prolonged evisceration, then it's probably the process of awakening. Here you have these 3 propositions in these 3 paragraphs, each of which is trying to say something. Is there hidden meanings here? Let's assume for a moment that Jed is not a fictional character and that he's actually an enlightened guy and that he knows something. What's he trying to tell us?
Lavita.
Yes, Lavita.
Maybe I'm just being too superficial, but what I read from it is the process of enlightenment is not being tucked into bed with a bedtime story from mom and dad and you drift off to sleep warm and cozy. It's going to be like, pardon the Lord of the Rings reference, but it's going to be like climbing Mount Doom, having the ring dragging your neck down. And if it's warm and fuzzy, that's just your human nature leaning toward pleasure rather than toward growth.
Yeah, so here's a proposition. Nobody changes if they're completely comfortable. Nobody changes if they are completely comfortable. How uncomfortable do you have to be before you change? We have some people like Dr. Bill, who decided that he needed to come 2.5 inches from death before he was ready to make the great transformation. Other people, it's like, ow, I stubbed my toe. Oh, I'm enlightened.
Mm. Give it thought, Dr. Bill.
Yeah. I have been going back to and kind of pushing gently on our prompt quote from Jed McKenna. My first reaction is probably not the right one. I'll tell you that right now because I have personal triggers, partially because I did literally, you're right, Mushtaq. I literally had to say, I cannot live like this anymore. I need to do something or I literally cannot live. And that was, no kidding, going to take the dirt nap forever, live.
Yeah.
But
yeah, people need to realize that I was not, in fact, engaging in hyperbole there.
Yeah, I will take exception to the Great Awakening thing. I don't think, to use Jed's terminology, that I have any business saying I'm done. So anybody wants to take exception with me? I mean, I may not know what I'm talking about, okay? I will accept that as a potential.
Yeah.
But
remember, the idea of done may just be a game rule.
Sure.
And
but
it's
then,
not a game that I'm playing, so.
Done as in what?
Well,
Done.
Jed's
growing?
idea of somebody who was fully awakened is that they're done. They have no more questions. They're finished. This is not my experience. My experience is you'll know you're done because you haven't taken a breath in a while. 20 minutes, half an hour. Oh, I'm done. Until then, you ain't done. That's
taking
what I
that
say.
dirt nap, as
Taking
Dr.
the
Bill
dirt
said.
nap, yes.
and not millennialism, I'm sorry. Done as static, done as either a proposition or a game rule is, I think, a very slippery way to, proclaim yourself anointed.
Yeah.
Which I got a real, danger, Will Robinson, danger. I'm going to shut up for a minute because I have some more things to think about, but I see other hands up. Let me step off the plate for a minute.
Fair enough.
James,
thank you, Dr. Bill. Yeah, James.
Granted us.
You gotta unmute.
Lavita had her hand up first. She had her hand up before me.
Oh, Lavita, you rented us.
Oh my. I was laughing because Mushtak, because what you said, I was thinking the same thing. In another religious tradition, the person who is the center of that tradition, the last thing he said during a certain part of his life was, "It is finished." And then he took his last breath. So I'm kind of, I don't want it to be finished anytime soon. I'm thinking another 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Stick around, Levita.
So yeah, so I was agreeing with you on that because it's never finished. There's always something new to find out, to discover about the world around you or yourself.
To struggle with, yeah.
Yeah, and while I'm my striving these days is just to be at a place where I'm comfortable, where I'm not always struggling. But I also know that that's just a pit stop. It's just like taking a nap. Like you don't nap forever usually, unless unless it's finished. But sometimes you just want to get where, okay, the bills are paid, nobody's calling you, you can kind of eat a sandwich and finish it without anybody needing any help, and then you finish and you're like, okay, back into the fray.
Yes. And that is something that I look forward to us getting to, because that was on my mind with this quote. So thank you, Levita, for touching on that. James, how about you?
Just quickly, in terms of being done, I think Adyashanti in his very first book distinguished between, I don't know what you call it, was it first impersonal enlightenment, then personal? It was a distinction between stabilizing in a spiritual state, which is liberating and enlightened. But then once you're stabilized there, all your defense mechanisms wind down and all your personal garbage starts to be regurgitated. And the next enlightened action is to work through that. I've myself concluded a while back that the human nervous system always casts a shadow as long as it's alive and breathing and kicking on the earth. But you can get to a point where you release your major resistances to reality and resistance to the process of growth. There'll still be cleanup to do. There'll always be cleanup as long as you're a human being. But your perspective on the journey can change from resistance, feeling overwhelmed, whatever, to embrace of it in some way. There's some kind of point where you click over and can stay, but you'll still have the nervous system generating unconscious material. That's my assumption at this point. Subject to change without notice, like anything else I say.
Dr. Bill again.
Well, yeah, and Levita as well.
Yeah. Both Levita and James have circled around to points that have kind of been kicking around. I think, one, the second paragraph is either facile or dismisses something, which is, as Levita pointed out, if you don't have a sandwich and you're hungry, good luck with the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's an, and I have lived through it, not to be that guy, but I have. There is a hell of a lot along the road between mild discomfort and I literally cannot live like this anymore. And most of that road will keep you from being able to want to do the work. As the old folksy Florida saying has it, it is really hard to keep track of the fact you wanted to clean the swamp when you are up to your ass in alligators. Okay.
James is amused.
Now,
as am I.
Having said that, assuming that the person behind the pen behind Jed wanted to share an insight rather than just play the biggest scam in existence on everybody. If I read it through that lens, the third paragraph in particular feels like a problem I've had in the past, which is once you get to some version of there, and you fall out of it, and somebody asks you, what was that like? How do you talk about it? I can frame that third paragraph and say that it is accurate to say that the work of awakening is going to hurt like merry bugger hell. Pardon my language, all you Anglophiles. It's going to be horrid. So, yeah, and maybe it is okay to have therapeutic healing for some stuff because it's merely the karmic equivalent of a rock in your shoe. Okay, cool. But just know that if you want to do this, it's going to be a whole lot harder than what most people have told you. And Jed does touch on that in other passages over and over again, that this is going to be harder than people told you. Why would anybody want to do this?
Yeah, and that is fundamentally one of his more important messages is if people knew what they had to go through to be awake, nobody'd ever do it.
Yeah. I mean, that goes for many initiatory things, let's say.
Yeah.
You don't know how hard it's going to be until you're in it. Yeah.
But it doesn't, it's a particular kind of hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spent a fair time knocking around what is called third world countries. And I like to ask people questions. So when I was in Tanzania, there was one question that I would ask people, which is basically, what is meaningful? And the answer almost always came out something like meat. Having meat, being able to give my family meat is meaningful. They didn't want enlightenment. They didn't want losing, all your karmic debt. They wanted a nice, juicy piece of warthog for their kids. The kind of discomfort involved in waking up is not that. It helps if you get that part of your life cleared up. Not impossible, but I mean, Maslow's hierarchy counts for something. So, in some ways, the pains and agonies that you go through in the awakening process are those of a very entitled person. Not the guy who would really like to be able to give his kids some ground wildebeest. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, there's a it's a paradox, but it's not, it's very simple stuff. Lavita, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to work backwards because y'all said so much. I agree with Mushtak in that if you go by the hierarchy of needs, if you're starving to death and worried about trying to keep your family alive, you don't have the mental, emotional, financial space to consider enlightenment because you've got more pressing concerns. As far as who wants to do the work, it's kind of like we want the benefits of the work, but nobody wants to do the work. And and I mean, because if we could go, everybody would do that if we could do that.
Yeah,
But
there's an old Rasta saying, which is everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to be dead.
yep. And it's like, well, I want to be enlightened. So I was told I have to clean out all my extra stuff. I need to give my money to the poor. I need to do dit, 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 dit. And those are checklists, and you can do those things. But somewhere in between giving away all your things and organizing your stuff, there's all of these other things that some are more painful than others. And since we're all different, some of us are like, okay, well, I'm not that attached to my stuff, no problem. And then other people are like, you can have this teddy bear when you pry it from my cold, dead hands, because we're all different. So we want the benefits. And it is harder than you think. And you don't know it's harder than you think until you're in it. And then you're like, it's too late to go back. Don't ask how I know that. So,
we warned you.
yeah, you did. You did. I didn't listen. The third thing was something James said. It triggered something in my brain. A group of friends that I was part of decided that we were going to clean one another's houses because, many hands make light work. And as these things kind of happen, when people are coming to your house to clean, you want to get your house clean, so to speak, get the worst of it out of the way. And I remember we were working our way through the list of people, and we got to like the second to last person, and I get to her house late. I had something happen and I didn't show up on time. I was like an hour late. So I said, I'll take the kitchen. I don't mind doing the kitchen. So the owner of the house walks in and she goes, oh my God, is my kitchen that dirty? Because I was going over the cracks in her microwave with a toothpick and a toothbrush. And she was just mortified. And I said, actually, your kitchen is very clean. And because it's so clean, I can get down deep into these cracks and crevices because I'm not trying to clean 75 years of crud off the inside of your microwave. I don't think she got it. But if your car is super dirty, and you've got, it's more like an archaeological dig than a car, it's going to take forever to get down to where they're cleaning where the seams meet. And it's kind of like enlightenment in some ways, because when you start, sometimes it's literally, there's so much to do that it seems overwhelming. And then when people are looking at you and going, oh, you seem to have it all together. No, I'm just cleaning the cracks where the seams meet because I got rid of all this other stuff, and that took 50 years. And I'm still not done. And that's kind of how this sounds to me. Like it's just a removal of the layers of the stuff. And then when we finally get it, whoever you believe in will go, it's time to come home. You're like, wait a minute, I just got it.
Yeah. And then there's the routine stuff, right? Because it's not like we're not in the middle of dealing with family, dealing with relationships crumbling or whatever, just life stuff, even as we're doing the best we can to be awake. And you have to dust everything, go around and make sure you're keeping track.
I was thinking about something Mushtak said. He was like, if you think you're enlightened, go home and deal with your family.
Yep.
Like, back to the drawing board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
James, talk to us.
Yeah, and then I'd love to hear from people who haven't talked yet after James. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Motivation to wake up. Okay, firstly, my own experience, most of my life was spent trying to create an isolated, immune ego, if I was honest about it. I read about all these accounts of enlightenment and the struggle and everything, and I translated those to this invulnerable position where nothing can touch you. You're now like a unit that is immortal. So, and then the brief, fleeting tastes I had, and they were just really brief and fleeting, but I saw that was totally bogus. The only thing that was going to take me to enlightenment was a curiosity, a passionate curiosity for the truth, that the negative motivations weren't sufficient in and of themselves. back to Adyashanti again, back to his first book again. I wish I had it here. He said something, I think he spends a lot of time in the first book distinguishing between this holy curiosity and conventional egotistical motives. And certainly pain will disrupt your complacency,
Yep.
but and can be a partway motivator as well. But I think there's a positive motivation as well. It's not driven by that. It's a passion, I think. That's all I had to say.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, if it were all just like the whip being cracked behind you, would that be enough, really? And I don't think it would be for me. I think there's a
If there
certain
was somebody cracking a whip behind me, all of my thoughts would be on how do I get at this motherfucker when he ain't looking.
yeah. So there has to be contrary to this, what's Jed is saying, at least in this quote, is there has to be part of this that is enjoyable, that is satisfying, that is fulfilling.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that being awake, okay, you've all heard Sat Chit Ananda, right? And Sat is being, Chit is mind. Ananda is usually translated into English as bliss, but that's a terrible translation for that word. A better understanding of Ananda would be something along the lines of contentment. When I think of Ananda, when I experience Ananda, I'm not going, oh my God, I'm so high. I'm completely blissed out. It's more like, wow, everything is exactly the way it should be. Even the weird shit.
And it's not a denial of the weird shit.
It's not a denial of the weird shit. It's just being able to be content in your own skin. So that is Sat Chit Ananda, is a good description of the awake state if you understand what the words mean. Yeah, Sat, being, to be able to just be. Chit means mind, but it can have, depending on how it's used in the Yoga Sutras, Chitta Vritti Narodaha. Chit, that means to stop the twistings and turning, the churning of the mind. So the mind can be in this state of twisting and turning and churning, or it can just be relaxed. And when this says chit in Sat Chitananda, that's the kind of chit that it's talking about. So you have that. And that is an entirely pleasurable and comfortable experience. It is the great as I like to say.
So I would like to contrast that to, wow, that is a person.
Knocking on somebody. I wonder if that's a sannyasin. Yes, Lavita.
Nope, never mind. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say that this is, I feel in fairness to Jed, I think mostly what he's talking about in that second paragraph is spiritual bypassing,
Yeah.
like being cozy, being like, wow, man, it's all good and good vibes only, bro. That kind of thing,
Yeah.
where it's
Here's the thing. By the end of this, I am going to demonstrate to you that Jed is absolutely correct in everything that he said, just not in the way that you started to read it.
Yeah. Well,
That's my theory.
spoiler alert. Yeah. But like, I think that this is something that we all struggle with learning, whether that's from the angle of like, oh, but I really just did want the warm fuzzies and all the love and community, man, and therapeutic, healing all my traumas. And then you have the people who are like, no, it's supposed to be brutal and I'm supposed to throw up afterwards. Like, I'm really wanting my ass to be kicked and for me to be just purified of all my hot garbage within. And like, I think we get lost in these fantasies or nightmares about spiritual work. And the secret is that there is a middle way, that it isn't all throwing up from a hard workout, metaphorically speaking, or blissing out because you've been love bombed by 100 people who are telling you, welcome, welcome. It is hard work. And you get to take care of yourself while doing it. And we've done lots of talks about how that can be done. So I think that Jed loves to talk in hyperboles,
Yeah. Yeah, his method is to churn things up to the point where the cream rises to the top, but
Yep.
so do other things.
Yeah. And it certainly offers lots of food for thought and for rich conversations like the one we're having.
Yeah, of course, we're going to get all the Judd McKenna fans screaming at us now.
Whatever. I've read the books. Come at me. But, Mushtak, aren't you secretly Jed McKenna?
People have occasionally suggested that, but only because he stole a bunch of my stuff. I forgave him for it, though.
So before we move on, anyone who hasn't talked yet, do you guys want to offer thoughts on anything so far? Khalil or Yusuf?
Khalil has.
Yeah, Yusuf, sure.
Even better.
Or Alessandro. Yeah, you've chatted too. Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the Marvel character Venom. You know the character, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
There's a parasite, and there's a man which has this parasite. So when I live, I bring the same sense of I to everywhere, and I have this like a parasite. So when I first realized that I have this kind of parasite, it must be the first big shock. So I have this kind of parasite. So, and trying to remove it from myself, or what is in the center, maybe I cannot call it myself, because what I know as myself is that parasite. So trying to remove it should be painful, I guess, because everything I learn in this world, everything I have in my mind is built on this self, and trying to remove it is to knock down everything. So, and I mean everything. So the pain in that process, I feel it is there to, yeah. I don't know if it makes any sense. So
No,
Yeah,
it
it
does make
does, yeah.
sense. And Khalil
And we
feels
are totally gassed that you like Marvel comics.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. And that's the paradox, right? Like there is something that is truly painful about much of this work.
Yeah. All right, Khalil, lay it on us.
What
all
you
this
thinking
stuff is
about?
all this stuff is just
You get extra points if you quote Wittgenstein.
well. As I said yesterday, misquoting Wittgenstein. Whereof we cannot speak, thereof we must recite Rumi.
Yes.
But yeah, all this stuff is above my pay grade. I have a hard enough time not falling asleep every 2.5 seconds. So I don't know.
Hang in there, I guess. Yeah. All right. So I just want to say hi to our new person. Hi. Hello.
Hi, hi,
Where are you
Fleur.
calling in
I
from?
am I am from India.
Yeah, what part? Are you in Gujarat by chance?
No, West Bengal.
Ah, okay.
Very nice. Yeah.
I'm
Welcome.
just here to listen. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. No problem. We won't put you on the spot
Oh, don't believe her.
today.
We will totally put you on the spot.
Thank you, thank you.
So,
All right.
by any
Yes.
chance, your name?
Sure. My real name is Niladri. I am a disciple of Osho, so my sannyas name is Ma Dhyan Mudita.
I was wondering if that was the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I am familiar with you from from your joining our forum and such. Yes.
Yes, that's right. Bonnie is my nickname, so I am Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie. Yes.
And we
Yeah.
have a certain fondness for Osho, so you're in good hands.
Thank you. Even I am very intrigued by Gurdjieff. My first book was Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson, which I vaguely understood, but I was very fascinated by the fantasy of it. I was just guided to this forum, so I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And it's good to have a face to the name, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So, yes, Mushtaq, I know I feel that we have another chapter to this.
Yes.
Where are we headed?
We are headed to, all right, imagine this. You are the emperor. What are you wearing? Start there. If the emperor is naked, it's you noticing that you're naked. It's not some dude out there. We don't care about any dude out there. I mean, God, we live in Northern California. Naked people walking up and down the street is a fairly regular occurrence. If you notice that, in fact, these wonderful clothes that you've put on don't in fact exist, what can that tell you to help you? There is no mass exodus away from anything in this world. And it doesn't matter where you go. You can go to Japan, you can go to India, you can go to Tibet. But what matters is that you go towards the self with capital S. And this idea of self-reliance, self-determination, towards a common sense of approach to figuring out just what the hell is going on around here. That is the process of awakening. And the questions that your now newly unclothed self has to ask is, where are we? What do we know for sure? And what do we know is true? What do we know is true? First of all, most important question to ask when you look down and notice that you're naked is this a dream? Am I awake or am I asleep? Right? And if it's a dream, cool. Imagine some clothes. If it's not a dream, then these questions become very, very useful. And what can I know is true is one of the big questions. It's almost as big as what are we having for dinner? But, you know, we have touched upon that several times. Several of you have. Neti, right? That's a way of figuring out what do we know is true. Not this, no, not this, not this, not this, not this. And you keep doing the not this until whatever is left is this. That's one way to do it. The idea of Sat Chit Ananda is another way to do it. And there's all of these different ways that you can figure out what the hell is true. And eventually, in some way or another, we end up at the Cartesian answer, which is not, I think, therefore I am. That's not the Cartesian answer. The Cartesian answer is the perception of your own being as witness to all of this insanity out there. The one thing that you cannot doubt, the one truth that you can absolutely know is that you're watching this movie. And then everything starts from there. That moment of reflexive awareness where the eye turns its eye on itself. And then your eye is single and your whole body is filled with light. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Groovy.
Yes. Halil says, I and I vibration. Do you wanna share about that? Do you wanna let us know what you mean?
You guys aren't familiar with reggae? You never heard
Yeah.
Bob Marley?
Oh,
I was
yeah.
about to say that we can't really share about that without a spleef.
My Dr. Bill says Yama. All right, yes.
Yeah.
I missed that one, but I'm glad that many of you got it. That's excellent. All right.
Now, when you look down and you notice that you are naked, and you are the emperor, after all. You know that, right? You're the emperor. You are the Buddha that makes the grass green. There is no other but you. There is nothing in my cloak but God. There's got to be careful where you say that.
Yep. Well, you
That
know,
will get
quoting
you to
Rumi
this.
too.
That will get you to this second chapter, the second paragraph.
We do, is it okay if we touch base with Bill before we move on? He has his hand
Yes,
up.
Bill, tell us things. Where are you?
Yeah, I wanted to take a moment to double back and recognize that as arcane as Yusuf's method of explanation is, if you don't make yours Marvel, it is precisely what we've been talking about here. If ego, I, is cast as the parasite, and witness is what's left, it is a remarkably elegant contemporary framing of the question. And I just wanted to throw pom-poms up for Yusuf because I thought that was a fabulous way to integrate.
Yeah. And that reminds me that there's a very fascinating book that I ran across back in the 60s, written by, it is a sci-fi horror novel written by a fellow by the name of Colin Wilson, who did it basically on a dare with August Derleth, called The Mind Parasites, which describes exactly this problem.
Creepy.
Creepy but fun, and written in the best Lovecraftian style, including the racism, sexism, bigotry, and all of that. He got it all perfectly.
Oh man.
But so
Not to be
as
read when you're on psychedelics, though. Only a madman would do that.
so here we are looking at paragraph 2, simple test. One of the common responses to notice that you are in fact naked is to gaslight yourself, to do some spiritual bypassing, to pretend that it's all groovy, to go, hey, nudism, right? It's healthy. Vitamin D, man. So you got all of that going. But at the same time, just the act of realizing that you are the emperor and you are naked and you've been fooling yourself this whole time can create certain moments of blissful awareness, which are then easy to turn into a little spiritual bypassing. Now, if we think about the Enneagram, we have noticing you're naked is the 3 shock, the first conscious shock. The 4 point is all of this bliss, work, fun, wow, that stuff. Then we get to the 5 point. And remember, 0.5 on the Enneagram as you're moving through the process is called the point of most work. Also the point of most suffering. Also the dark night of the soul.
mm-hmm.
And that's where you get the sense of your flesh being flinched from your body in a sort of psychic way. That's where it gets rough, because you have to do the hard work at that point, which gets you to the second conscious shock, which is pretty permanent awakening. So Jed is describing something here in his delightfully sneaky manner that requires that you do a little decoding before you actually understand it. Now, you could be going, yeah, but you could just be projecting that. And the answer is no, because I asked him. That's exactly what he meant. figure that one out. Nor quiet.
Indeterminate.
Mm-hmm. Levita.
I've just written half a page on this, and I thought I was done, and then he kept talking. So the page is just filling and filling, and arrows are going every which way. And I'll see if I can parse out because this is what I understood. I don't know if I got it right. Okay, so I'm the emperor, and what am I wearing? And if I realize that the clothing I'm wearing doesn't exist, what does it mean? So my first thought was, I thought about what I would wear if I was emperor. And no matter what I'm wearing, how much I'm wearing, how ornate or beautiful the clothing I'm wearing, I am still naked under all that clothing. Then I discover, I'm not wearing any clothing. And yes, there is that moment of, is this a really bad dream? And I'm exposed. And what I took from that was, everybody you meet, everybody around you sees something about you, knows something about you that you don't know about yourself. So we're exposed to other people, even though we might not think we are, because we think we've got all our crazy tucked in and buttoned down. The fact that nobody says anything, that's a game rule. It's not polite to tell people, hey, your crazy's hanging out there, And when you talked about, Mushtaq, that you're watching the events of your own life and the awareness begins there, the I turns into you. It's like, at some point, you kind of realize that no matter what you do to conceal or protect yourself, you are always exposed. That's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah.
And now you will never see me again.
Yeah, there's comes a
Hey,
point in the
Levita.
process where you realize that everybody else is naked too.
I just want to let you know, Levita, that your crazy's hanging out a little bit.
Too late. It's like one of those royal trains. It's like 50 feet long. There's no tucking that in.
Yeah, that's a spirit. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Matian Mudita has a question here.
Yeah, and she wants to share that, but it feels like it's just happening without me in it. Do you want to say more about that?
Before you do,
Please.
answer the question, feels like it, that to whom?
That's what I don't know.
Who notices?
I don't know.
Who doesn't know?
But I don't know this I is a big question mark.
Why should you have to know it? You are it. There's nothing to know. You are that which looks at whatever is happening and goes, I don't know what's happening.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, my question has been made clear by the previous person. I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but
Levita.
that was
Lavita.
Yes, Lavita. So Lavita just clarified my doubt. I wanted to make sure I'm getting it right. But she just, she said pretty much the same thing that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Aw. Well, Levita is appreciative of your acknowledgement, and she's glad that what she shared was of use to you, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. Just a slight difference. Sorry?
No, I just said I'm glad that you understood what I meant, even though my crazy was hanging out.
No, absolutely. I was thinking I am crazy to think this really when Mushtaq said that imagine you're the emperor and you're naked and you're not wearing anything. I just went like, okay, no big deal. And then he said that just imagine what would you wear. And I said pretty much anything or nothing, does not even matter. And that was the only difference that I had in regards to what Lavira said. The rest, everything was the same.
Mm. Thank you. I'm glad that you spoke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. We've all got a little bit of crazy hanging out.
Or a lot of crazy hanging out.
Yeah, well, you know. Yes.
I have a quick question. So when you were asking Mushtaq about like who is watching, is it both? Like we're the watcher and we are the watched?
We're certainly the watcher, and we're watching something. Whether that something is us or something else, who knows? This is the Cartesian problem. Descartes asked the question, what can I know absolutely? And then he did neti all over the universe. And he came to the conclusion that he could doubt every experience that he had, except for the experience of him being the witness. That was the one thing that he could not doubt, that there was his eye going, oh, I doubt that. I doubt this. Wait, what am I? Here I am. I can't doubt me doubting. Words fail at this point, but yeah, I'll get what I mean. Or you don't. And that's okay.
Yes, we do somehow. I mean, in some way.
Good. Dr. Bill, did you have a thought?
Well, yeah, Mushtaq stuck the landing to my way of thinking because words do fail. It would be fascinating to know how Descartes would have expressed it if he had access to a non-egocentric language.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And intrinsically, ego is baked into Latin.
Yeah.
And consequently, the other languages in post-Roman culture in Europe and then in North America. So that there's that kind of language trap, right? Because somebody will come back who's only an undergrad in philosophy, but thinks he knows Latin, and try and instruct Mushtaq that, well, no, cogito ergo sum means I think, therefore I am. Except you need to then read the rest of what Descartes had to say around the subject to say, well, poor Rene, he was struggling with the language too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the egocentric languages are not great tools to dissect the difference between ego and witness with a capital W, that which witnesses, that which perceives, that which says, I, whatever version of I you want, got this. We have crappy language tools for that. So it's not a big surprise that we make a mess of the dissection.
Indeed.
Yeah. And, you know, Descartes didn't actually say cogito ergo sum. He didn't say that. He said, je pense, donc je suis. He said it in French, and they translated it into Latin. It's pretty much the same thing because it's French, but
so Hallyu has his hand raised, and
yes,
I would be.
I think, therefore, I'm Swiss. Is that what you meant?
I know, right?
So, yeah, I mean, I always imagined Descartes as a Buddhist coming up with the cogito. And had he been a Buddhist and been immersed in the doctrine of anatta, which is no self, his conclusion at the end of the meditations would have been something appears.
Yeah.
Thank you, Khalil.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem because when you get to the end of the Cartesian question, there is no word in any language that can describe accurately the experience. Sanskrit does okay, but Sanskrit is also an object-oriented language.
Is that why we end up with weird language like the objects given to consciousness and all of
Yes,
that?
yeah.
Those phrases drive me insane.
Yeah.
But I mean, now those are attempts to communicate, you know, things that are very hard to communicate.
The Indo-Iranian language group, which becomes the Indo-European language group, are all object-oriented languages. That's why people in India and the United States are such good computer programmers, because we use object-oriented programming languages. And we're already comfortable with that. If you are a native speaker of Arabic, it's a little bit harder because your natural language is verb-based, not noun-based. But we digress.
Indeed.
Yeah. Levita says, that's when you realize there is so much that we don't know. As a matter of fact, we don't know nothing. And as some crazy Taoist once said, from the beginning, there has never been a thing.
Not even close.
Nope, not even close. So here we have a little experience of spiritual inquiry, taking an idea like this and looking into it to find the truth in it, if there is any. There's always truth in it. There is truth in everything. Or there is truth in every event, I should say. Might be small, might be a tiny kernel, might be the size of an atom, but it's in there somewhere. Sometimes the truth is, hey, dude, you're full of shit. I have been that truth in my time. So, any more thoughts, questions, answers, queries?
Meditations.
Homely homilies? Personal attacks?
You can always save them for the comments. That's what those are for. Yes. Well, I don't have anything to add. Alessandro does so.
Yes.
One quick thing that I don't know how it is related, how much it is related to this piece, but you know, when you were talking about essentially the awareness, which is aware of itself and it's difficult to grasp. So there is a word in English which I think is very, very interesting that doesn't exist. I mean, there exists a similar word in Italian, in French, in Latin, but it doesn't have the same possible interpretation. So the word nothingness in English can be also read as no thingingness.
Yes.
Which is not the way in which usually it is used, right? Because you say nothing, but it doesn't mean no thing. So usually when you say nothing, you don't think no thing. But that's exactly the right, I think,
exactly what I was getting at. From the beginning, there has never been a thing.
Yeah, which is which is, you know, in Italian or in Latin, you cannot say such a thing. I mean, you have to say
Yeah.
a word that really means the emptiness, you know, like sunyata, you know,
Yeah.
people, you know, it's better than me, this stuff. But, you know, I always interpret sunyata as no thing, not complete empty void, you know, like emptiness in this sense, like, so something that cannot be objectified, like in this sense, like.
Yeah. It is that which makes the universe possible. In Sanskrit thought, there are 5 elements, right? We only ended up in the West with 4 of them because of the Greeks. Yeah, the Greeks had fire, water, earth, air, right? But there is this 5th element that is so important. In Sanskrit, it's called akasha. Akasha is translated as nothingness, void, empty. Without that, there is no universe, because without that, all the rest of the elements would be smushed together. As a matter of fact, it would be like a singularity, as if all matter in the universe were squeezed together into an infinitely small point. And then God goes, have some void. Wham, you got a universe. Didn't really happen that way, but it could have.
We don't know.
So yeah, the idea of no thingness is incredibly important. So you're a mathematician, right? Am I remembering that correctly,
Yes.
Alessandro? Yeah. So in the last, say since the late 1400s, what's the most important thing that happened in mathematics?
Since when? Since
Since the 1400s, say since 1492.
1492?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The most important thing, like, I mean, for me, you know, the most important thing, I mean, which is really a modern approach, is viewing objects or objects in mathematics, not so studying objects in mathematics, not looking at their internal structure, but their relation with other objects. So these automatically determine the structure of the object without having to look inside it. So it's like when I explain this to my students, like saying, tell me you are hanging out with tell me who you are hanging out with, and I know who you are.
Oh yeah,
Right,
that phrase. Apparently that works for mathematical
that's how it works in
objects.
mathematics, at
Yeah.
least.
And that's incredibly important. But without this other thing, you would have difficulty doing that.
I mean, I know zero, of course, is a very important thing.
Yes, that's exactly it.
But why 1492?
Because the West got 0 from the Arabs.
I know, but I thought they got here a little bit earlier than 1492.
Not terribly much. 1492 was when Spain finished the Reconquista of the Islamic republics and caliphates. Now, we have to remember, though, that the Arabs got it from India. People forget that. It wasn't the Arabs who invented the 0. It was the Indians. India is the first place that you find the true 0, the void as number that allows us to do things like having negative numbers and imaginary numbers and imaginary negative numbers and all of this kind of stuff. The Greeks were afraid of the void. And so they refused to do math. They were so afraid of the void that when they did astronomy, they would use Chaldean numbers, which are basically the old Sumerian base 60 system that actually had something like a decimal to do their calculations. And once they had the answer, they would convert it into Greek numbers, which were like Roman numerals. But that 0 is essential to our modern mathematics. including everything you were just describing.
I think I know why they were scared of zero, because zero is related to the empty set.
Yes.
The idea of the empty set. And every proposition is true for the empty set. So, and one very scary thing for mathematicians is when they construct things, they have to be careful to verify that what they are talking about is not the empty set, because essentially, you can write a 30 pages paper full of deduction, but they are all trivially true because your starting point is the empty set. So that's a very academic death.
Yeah.
Sorry to use the Christian cock. That's the.
Yeah, we are drifting off a little bit, but it's such a fun drift for me.
No, I mean, I don't want to.
I am distracted by Yusuf's kitty
Yes.
paying us a visit.
Hello, kitty.
Yes. Yeah, Khalil says that's also why nobody has ever really understood either Parmenides or Heraclitus, who are two sides of the same ontology.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Mathematicians and philosophers.
Yes.
Yes. Mudita
Bonnie
has a question. We're going to call you 5 or 6 different names.
And yeah,
no problem. It's all right. You can call me anything that's comfortable to you. So I just had this weird thought in my mind, I guess. If we realize the zero or the nothing, all the doors, they seem to be open and we don't know where to go. What to do in that case?
Pick one. Or pick none.
Anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, they will most likely all lead to the same place. Or if they don't, it'll be an interesting ride. But remember, you're creating the doors. The doors are just objects given to your being, given to your consciousness. And if that is the case for me, I wouldn't pick any of them.
You would or you wouldn't?
I wouldn't. It's like doors. What doors? Why do I need doors? I'm happy sitting right here. Somebody bring me a bubbly water. Yeah.
That's a great thought. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. It's really interesting.
Good. Don't take it too seriously, though, because as I said, I have occasionally been full of shit.
I guess at some point in time in our lives, we are full of shit, every one of us.
Yes. Regularly, I am full of shit. Or, it's good to be regular, right?
All right, let's wrap this puppy up. Send it off to bed. Put it in the backyard for the night.
All right, well, thank you for a wide-ranging discussion, and I think there's something in this for everyone. And it has been a lot of fun to hang out with you guys, so thank you so much. Oh, hello. And yeah, we look forward to hanging out with you all again next week at this usual time, Sunday, 6:30 Pacific time.
And if you have to come late, you're welcome to come late.
Yes. All right, so we'll wave to everyone watching on the replay and to each other, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.